everyone. I'm Jennifer Reynolds, the CEO of Women Corporate Director Foundation, and thrilled to have you all here today at our Boardroom Beyond podcast. And we've got a really interesting topic today, one that we're all grappling with, just the evolving technology landscape, from the challenges of cybersecurity to the opportunities of AI and some of the risks that reside there, and talk about what we need to be doing as boards. And so today we've got here with us Jan Tighe, who is a former Vice Admiral with the U.S. Navy. She's also a director with Goldman Sachs, with General Motors, Huntsman, and MITRE Corp. And she's also a member of our WCD South Florida chapter. So thank you so much, Jan, for joining us here today. You have such an interesting background. You're on so many interesting boards as well. So we'd love to talk to you about some of these challenges as you see them, and some of those opportunities, of course, as a board member, and what we should all be thinking about. So, but first of all, I definitely want to turn it over to you to just talk a bit about your background. It's very interesting. Would love to understand that transition from your military career, Navy career, into corporate boards.
Sure. Thanks, Jennifer. I'm just thrilled to be here with you today. I think it's important to know that I didn't come from a military family. I didn't come from a military background. I went to the Naval Academy in 1980, when the first women had just graduated from the United States Naval Academy. So it was an interesting time to be there. I thought it might be fun. I was wrong, but it was definitely the road less traveled, and that which doesn't kill us makes us stronger. So I spent 34 years in the Navy as a cryptologist, which means doing signals intelligence, a form of intelligence, cyber and electronic warfare. The beauty of the military is that they really structure your leadership opportunities so you have a increasing span of responsibilities, through your progression through the Navy. My highlights include flying in the first Gulf War in the EP-3 aircraft, flying reconnaissance missions, which I never envisioned would happen during my career, given the combat restrictions when I started. I was also assigned as the first woman to be a fleet commander at Fleet Cyber Command and the 10th Fleet, which oversaw 29 commands all over the globe with about 15,000 people. While I was in that job, and a couple of years before I retired, a fellow retired flag officer asked me if I would be able to speak on cybersecurity to a group of corporate directors. And I said, sure, I can do that. What's a corporate director? And so my quest to learn about governance and what corporate directors do started by me, having to speak to them about cybersecurity. And I was really in an operational job, so it's still quite a gap between being in the operator role and being in the oversight and governance role. So I felt like I had a lot of experience in leadership and strategy and cybersecurity and technology that I could offer to sort of the corporate boardroom. And I knew I had a lot to learn about business and what happens in a corporate boardroom. So I did take quite a few classes to sort of prepare myself before I retired from the Navy. And I retired in 2018, and 2 months later, I found myself interviewing for a public company board job, which happened a lot faster than I ever expected it to happen. So that's kind of what got me to the corporate boardroom.
Well, it's a really interesting background. And, I've spoken with other people in the military, and as you think about, though it's not the business world, very complex organizations, you're running there with many, many people. So there certainly are some parallels in many regards, as I'm sure you found. So I wanted to start with, of course, AI, and, with the complex organizations that you're involved with, very large, and, you can come at it from whether that's, manufacturing background or financial services, from the different types of boards that you're on. What are you seeing in those companies? What are the opportunities? How are you deploying some of the AI technologies out there? And then broader, in terms of the industries, what's happening in those different industries that you're involved with?
Yeah. Well, clearly, it's easy to see that AI is both a huge opportunity and also a huge risk area for us in the future. I think it's a bit early to really categorize what the impact will be. I tend to think of it simplistically in three different buckets in terms of the kinds of things that I'm seeing across corporate America and even within the government. And clearly the ability to speed processes. I think of the efficiency bucket. To the degree you can speed a process and optimize internal tasks to get through it faster, automate the mundane is a way of thinking about it. I'm seeing a lot of experimentation in that kind of way. You think about how they're using, for example, Microsoft's Copilot, and other things like that. I think there's huge opportunity there in the compliance regime for those highly regulated industries to be able to automate their ability to check compliance and confirm compliance. On the other side is obviously the effectiveness side. How do you make complex tasks that today we ask humans to do easier, and minimize the errors in that process? And so there's huge opportunities, and I think those are the low-hanging fruit. You've seen a lot of people experimenting out there, in those sort of two different buckets with commercially available AI products, understanding the risk associated with that, and making sure you're not putting any of your non-public information into those models by using them is an important safety tip. But I also think what we will begin to see is more of a business disruption type of application and use case. When companies are able to normalize their data in a way that can really unlock the value of their operational data to potentially disrupt a business, I think that's potentially, one of the biggest sort of revenue generating opportunities that's out there. It's not going to be easy. Again, most people's data is not fit for purpose. So it's a journey that they've got to sort of go on. I think about the use cases. Clearly, autonomous driving is one of those use cases, really very disruptive. And when we think about natural language processing, like chatbots, and the ability to use that in, as a customer service type, really good customer service chatbot, as opposed to those that drive you crazy. And then even when you think about a lot of the professional services industries, where we, take those young new hires and they learn about providing professional services by, gathering and collecting. A lot of that potentially could be disrupted using AI. So it's pretty exciting to go along on the journey. Automation in manufacturing has been a thing for a while. In fact, it's such a thing that it's almost hard to gather the automated robots that you need, because there's such a high demand, out there for those. So I think that's going to continue, and manufacturing is certainly going to continue to evolve. And there's great opportunities to unlock the human spirit by unleashing AI to do that which humans don't actually need to be doing, and be able to move on to higher order problems.
Yeah, it's really, a lot of times we focus on, or people focus on, job losses, but what you're talking about is an opportunity, right? Like that's really, right. Let's take us out of doing those repetitive tasks and into things that, where you do need critical thinking. So, I think it's more exciting to think about it in that regard. Where could we go here?
And I think people will enjoy their work more. It'll take retraining. It'll take other types of skills, but we've got to be prepared to tool the workforce to do those other types of things as we see them coming.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to let's turn now to, of course, cybersecurity. We're all thinking about that all of the time. The recent issue with CrowdStrike is just a perfect example of how complex the environment is right now. So wanted to get your thoughts on what are those top challenges you think board members should be thinking about? What are the key sort of critical issues from a risk perspective too?
Yeah, when you think about CrowdStrike, although not a cyber attack, it could have been. There's not a lot of difference between SolarWinds, where it was a cyber attack that resulted in the automated update being corrupted and turning into an attack, versus an accident, an unhappy little accident that happened through human error. And in a lot of cases, we can look at various types of human error for guides on what could a cyber attack do, particularly if you're in the fields of manufacturing and other types of operational technologies where you've had potential accidents, et cetera. The question is, could an attacker duplicate that? And so the environment is very complex right now. I think clearly the supply chain risks that are out there are top of mind for a lot of people right now, because it's one thing to get your arms around your own networks, your own operational infrastructure, much harder to really understand the suppliers upon which you depend. And then the truth of the matter is your business's success depends on your supplier's suppliers, and you could just keep going. And so the further away you get from your actual business, the less you know about what those risks are. So I think supply chain is clearly top of mind. The speed of attack and what automation can do, what AI can potentially do in terms of shortening the kill chain for an attacker to get into your system, is something that has to be thought through, because the way you are going to end up defending about that is, again, with AI likely to be able to detect those kind of anomalous attacks that are in your system. And so I think it's going to get more complex, not less, as we bring more AI into the mainstream of our business. And I think we've got to find ways to deal with all of those complexities.
And so what do you think we should be doing as board members? Not all of us are coming to the table with your background. So how can we be making sure that, we're up to speed? What are best practices? How do we encourage a really holistic approach within the organizations on which the boards we sit?
Yeah. Well, clearly there is the technical aspect to it, but you don't have to be a technical person to ask those questions, right? I mean, I think it's most important for everyone to understand that compliance is got to be thought of as the floor, not the goal. It's just the basics that you have to do, and layering in various types of defenses that can reduce the chance of an attacker being successful are the types of things that on the technical side that we have to think about. Segmenting networks so that if and when they get in, they can't move freely throughout your network or into your operational technologies. The multi-factor authentication, authenticating people. Am I really me interacting with the network? Or am I somebody trying to pose as me? Authenticating the devices. Is this computer belong on our network? Is it not? I think there's a lot of innovation continuing in that space. And so looking for those new opportunities to beat the bad guys who are, it is a game, right? They're going to continue to try to up their game, and we have to up the defenses. But clearly there's a business aspect for the board to consider. And that is asking questions around what of our technologies are foundational to our business? What can we not do without? And really understanding what those are is not something that's easy. And I think management understanding what those are at the highest level is not something that's natural, because they just expect it, right? So asking questions around that and having the company rationalize what they think is most important, and then asking questions around, what are the supply chain dependencies to that particular system or that technology, and finally, it's a question of resilience. So if these are our most important crown jewels technologically to keep our business running, how resilient do we need to be? If this gets attacked, how quickly do we need it up? Because at the end of the day, those are business decisions to be made. The resilience, your risk appetite for that piece of equipment or that piece of software being taken offline. How quickly do you want to, how quickly do we need to restore it? How much downtime could we tolerate? And then you build the resilience in with different types of backup, different redundancies in the system based on that. And those are the types of questions I think that the board has every right to ask, and being curious and not intimidated by this technology, but just forcing the technologists, the CISOs, the CIO to explain it in a way that the board can understand it perfectly within our rights.
Absolutely. And I think often there is that reluctance to look like, perhaps the stupid one in the room around technology and not ask those questions, but it is so important. And, AI is new. All these cybersecurity threats are new. So I think we all need to be asking those questions. And I guess just to end on the AI note, and maybe as you see management bring opportunities to the board about trying new technologies, what are some of the questions that you're asking there? What's top of mind as someone's presenting this new great technology and implementing something in the organization?
I think, like I said, I think it has to all start with the business. So what problem are we trying to solve? Or what problem are we trying to speed solution to? It's getting focused first and foremost on what are we looking for in terms of outcome here? Not, ooh, isn't this bright, shiny new technology going to be fun? But what do we hope to achieve? And sometimes that's not always easy. Being asked, I remember in the Navy being asked, what's our return on investment for cybersecurity? And like, well, all of your investments are at risk if you don't invest in cybersecurity. So, if you can't get the ship underway from the pier, that's going to be a problem. So it's not as easy to put the return on investment. But as you build confidence in your teams, particularly with the AI, and capture how long does it take you to do this process? How many people does it take to do this process? What's the error rate in this process? And what do we hope to achieve on the other side of that? Or how do we hope to disrupt the business? I think the board deserves to have confidence in the technology and confidence that the use cases and the projects that the company is undertaking really matter. It's okay that in the beginning, while the team is getting comfortable with the AI and how to use it, that you're going after use cases that might be about efficiency or effectiveness. But as you progress up the maturity scale, if you will, into really business changing, revenue generating capabilities, I think building confidence that first and foremost, there's no hallucination going on in the AI, and that you're actually, providing the right answers to your customers or in terms of making business decisions based on them. And I think, as just like with cyber, being able to build confidence through external assessments in the future, and through tabletop exercises and involving the entire chain, management chain and the board in some of those thought experiments, so that all boats rise. Everybody's understanding of how this technology is going to change our business, is on par. Got to bring everyone along, including our regulators, by the way. For those highly regulated businesses, we have to find ways to employ use cases in a way that builds confidence in them, that the outcome is going to be what it should be or better better than what it would have been in some cases if a human had had to go through all of those steps. And so we've got to bring everyone along. I mean, I think there's a lot of risks out there. I think our nation, as a nation, the United States is leading in this space, but we can't afford to fall behind from either a national security perspective or an economic perspective. And I know that as regulators continue to struggle with, what should we be putting in place that ensures that there's, ethical development in the AI space, it's not putting a regulator on our economic growth. And so I'm glad I'm not the person who has to come up with those policies, but I do see a lot of opportunity in the future, but also a lot of risk associated with how we're going to evolve over time as a nation in terms of AI strategy and policy. So
it's interesting times, that's for sure. But I really like the thought around thinking about everyone in the ecosystem and how do you really educate and bring everyone into that, because you can't do it alone.
Absolutely.
Related,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's like the develop DevOps, Sec DevOps, in building software, including the operator in it as you go. It's the same thing, but the whole ecosystem has to come along with you, because you can have the greatest mousetrap in the world, but if the regulators don't understand it, if your customers don't understand it, it's going to take a while to be able to implement properly.
Well, thanks so much, Jan, for joining me here today. It's been a fascinating discussion. I'm sure very interesting for all of our listeners. So great to share your perspectives here. So thank you.
No, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention to all of those listeners out there as well that we'd love to see you at our Global Institute September 30th, October 1st in Orlando, Florida. So please have a look at our website. It's going to be a great event with lots of fantastic speakers, much like Jan. So thanks again, Jan, and thanks to our listeners.